We're on our way to somewhere now that is not an easy place to find. Although I put maps on, a lot of people get lost trying to find this place. Well, today I've come to a rather unusual castle, which is a Motte and Bailey castle in Cockroad Wood, not far from Pencil Wood, where we were the other week, really. And this was one of 3 Motte Bailey castles in the area. And it's quite unusual. It's a Norman import, so it came over with the Normans. And it's an incredible thing to see. So I'm going to have a good look around and put my thoughts together on it. So after 1066, this is when these were built. And it's amazing to see that we've still got one here in a condition where you can see the actual castle itself, which is nice. Obviously there are famous castles, Motte Bailey castles, such as Windsor Castle, which was a famous Motte Bailey castle. That was its roots. So William the Conqueror's got a lot to answer for. So you can see the castle ahead of me here, which is an earthwork. And the earthwork being the motte, or French word for mound, you see. We're already getting the French words in after 1066. So this was built sometime in between the Battle of Hastings and around about 1100, somewhere like that. So it's an incredible structure, and the mound itself was the defensive part. And the bailey is the area where people lived. So first things first, this would have had some steps that have gone up to it. And it's incredible to see. Really is quite an incredible thing. Leading to the top of the mound there. And the mound would have had a tower on top of it there. So we'll go up there and see what the view's like up there first from a defensive point of view. So they would have, if they'd been under attack, they would have just suddenly moved up to the tower and then defended themselves from there. It's quite a slippery path, so I've got to be careful and get to the weeded bits at the side, I think, or otherwise it'll end in disaster, and we don't want that. I've had enough of falling over recently. Oh, nearly went then. Up here. Nearly there. And it's amazing to think that a tower would have been on the top of this, and they're into the age of bows and arrows and things like that. And we'll have a look at the view from up here, which would have been, it's one of those areas, would have been a fantastic view, but not anymore, because of our old friend the modern foresters. And just through the gap there you can see again what sort of view it would have had across Somerset towards Wincanton there, and back towards the woods there. So the man who owned this land, and most of the land in Somerset, was Roger Arundel. And because of his bravery at the Battle of Hastings, things haven't changed a lot these days, he was awarded these lands as part of the settlement. And they would have been Saxon lands before. So they're little outposts that were set up in case there was any hassle, I suppose, from the Anglo-Saxons, so as they could carry on. But there were over 15,000 that came over, Normans. They affected our language and everything to do with our civilization in future years too. So it's incredible part of our history, and here it is overgrown again in the middle of Somerset, and it's great to come to these places. With erosion it's not as steep as it would have been, but you can sort of get an idea just looking down at how tall, with the ditch going around, that it would have been. And you can just see the ditch there. So I'm going to get on down, I think, and have a wander through the ditch, and then have a look at the Bailey part of the castle where people obviously lived. And I've got to be careful here because it's quite a steep, slippery descent, and I've got a bit of a knee injury going on. But so I've got to be very careful. And coming down now into the defensive ditch around the Motte, or should I say that in the French accent? Around the Motte. Now walking into the area of the Bailey, and this is where they all would have lived, and so everyday life would have gone on, and they would have lived in this area, and then if there was some form of an attack, they would have all retreated to the tower. And then once retreating to the tower, they would have defended the area, as well as, I suppose, the small ramparts around the side. So quite incredible to think of people living here, and the wildlife in here is totally different. See these little things on the trees here, look. Just there, here a hawk. Those little bits on the trees is quite interesting. And the same thing again, it's easier to come in the winter and look at these places than what it is in the summer, because all this bracken that you can see here, this would be alive with everything that's biting you, and whoa, it would be so grim. But it's incredible to see and to think that in a strange way I am walking back through time. And what I'll do is I'll put a LiDAR image on now to show where I'm actually standing, put an X on it, and I'm going to walk on over towards the defensive bank here, and you can see that's quite a tall bank. So let's have a wander up over the defensive bank. Oh, and you can see it's quite another one, strategic position, and the height of the ditch on this side is very tall actually. You're talking about 40 feet almost. Incredible. Let's walk on up here, see what we think of this, and then have a little talk about the area on from there. It's quite a tall bank, and looking back towards where I was earlier, where I'm going to put you on the LiDAR map there, or LiDAR image I should say, not LiDAR map, and come on up to this bank. Forgive me stumbling. And oh, you get a true idea for how high and how defensive just the Bailey was that they were living in, and I'll show you that by looking down here, although it's always difficult to see with a camera, but that gives you some idea of how tall it is up here. But a fantastic place to visit, and to think I'm walking on what was part of a community wall really, which would have been defended, and as I said on my last video, we've got the privilege of being able to walk on these, and years ago you wouldn't have had that privilege at all. A community lived in here, prepared to defend itself by building the Motte mound there in the distance, and I just find that quite an incredible thing. And people that came from France were descended from Vikings too. Obviously not all descended from Vikings, but quite a few of them were. And it's just a pleasure to be here in this lovely environment, and walking in the footsteps of our ancestors. And always walking through these areas you find different things. Oh, that's that branched off. And you can see here, look at these. Oh, another stick stuck in my ear. And look at them there. Isn't that just a lovely thing to see? Just on the side of them there. I expect somebody here will be able to identify them and say exactly what they are. Because if I identify it, I'll get it wrong, and then I'll have somebody saying, you got that wrong, James. But if you know what they are, please comment and say what these are. Because they're really quite different, aren't they? And then there's a few more over there, sort of living on the moss, and it looks like a birch. And the strange thing is with silver birch too, after the Ice Age, that was one of the most virulent trees that populated the landscape, was the silver birch. Incredible. So I'm sort of heading my way back now. It's been about a 4-mile walk to here, and I'm in a bit of pain with my knee, but it's been great to come here and great to have a look at everything to do with this castle. And we call it a fort, a castle, and it is really a fort to a certain extent, a protective structure. But to think this is just over the Wiltshire border in Somerset, it's got loads of other castles and things fairly near to it, but there's less of these moat and baileys than there are of hill forts. So it shows it was an invasionary tactic to have these camps, a bit like we have army camps today, I suppose, a similar thing. But I've enjoyed it. I hope you have too, and you'll come and visit it sometime too. I'll put the details up of where it is, and it's an amazing, amazing thing to do, to have a look at these wonderful places and walk in the history of them. Can't compare it really. So till the next time, goodbye.